it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper. The whole group was there. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama.
Look, this is hard to take on just them saying it. We got to see the proof. The DNI today, Gabbard, came out and said, I have documents that refute what former President Obama said about the sufficiency and the competency of the intelligence report. Now, here's what I think is going to happen here. I think two things can be true at the same time. I think that there was evidence there was absolutely evidence that Russia was messing with our election and seemed to be favoring Trump, like hacking the DNC, put out the stuff that was bad for Hillary, WikiLeaks dumping all that stuff, the misinformation and the type of it that was playing to the kind of tensions that Trump was exploiting. But maybe there was also opinions and information within the IC, the intelligence community, that they were also worried about Trump, and that they weren't that worried about Hillary on the Russian side, and that maybe they may have been doing other things. And the intelligence community decided to favor one reckoning over another. Now, that is what the IC does. But if that's what this is about, that there was other information, there were other opinions that lost to the other narrative, that is not treason. But let's talk to somebody who's been following it, because I'm speculating because I haven't seen the proof. Independent journalist Michael Shellenberger, been on the forefront of government transparency. He's a trusted source for me and believes there is a case to be made against the Obama administration. That's why I'm having him on. Michael, thank you very much for coming on and helping me out. Yes, I love the glasses. Tell me why you believe what you do.
Sure. Well, Chris, great to be with you. I think that, as usual, the truth is a little bit more complicated and in the middle than either what Trump is saying or than what Obama is saying. And I should also point out there's actually been two sets of documents that are relevant to Russiagate. The CIA last week, or maybe the week before, don't hold me to it, released a kind of memo reviewing its own role in what was called the Intelligence Community Assessment that came out in January of 2017, a couple weeks before the inauguration and the transition to Trump. And in that document, the CIA, with some hemming and hawing, basically acknowledged that it should not have said with high confidence that Putin was trying to help Trump. Now, the context for this is that we reported, and other people have reported, that in fact there was a lot of intelligence showing that the Russians favored Hillary because she was viewed as more stable and Trump was viewed as more erratic. I think the bottom line is, even kind of whatever side you take on that issue, the evidence was the intelligence was not considered good on the idea that Putin was trying to help Trump. The evidence did appear good that Putin was trying to kind of reduce trust in the American elections. But I think, Chris, then what comes out with the Tulsi Gabbard release yesterday, and is really additional details showing that Russian interference and involvement was just really blown way out of proportion. And this is kind of the part of the story that it's just a little bit more complicated that neither side wants to get at. But basically, the worst thing that really they can point to the Russians as having done is having hacked the DNC and getting these emails from Hillary Clinton and her campaign chair, John Podesta, and releasing them on the same day that famous grab them by
Hollywood.
What came out. Yeah. And so that was like the main thing. And then everything else was really small, just kind of ticky-tacky stuff, some social media ads, some bots, nothing that really added up to much. What Gabbard and her team emphasized was that there was no evidence of any tampering with the voting machines, but that's not really what the Obama team had claimed in early 2017. But really, and I think it's just a more complicated story. Basically, what the intelligence community did is that they, first of all, said with high confidence stuff that they didn't have high confidence in. There was another example of that in the case of even knowing that the Russians had been the ones that had hacked the DNC. The FBI and the NSA both said that they were not sure that it was the Russians who did it, and it was a private firm that had done the analysis, and we still, the public hasn't seen that. So the bottom line is, clearly the intelligence community abused its powers. Clearly they manipulated intelligence to sort of frame Trump as a puppet of Putin. There was not really anything new here pointing to Obama because we already knew that, I mean, it was his IC that had conducted
Right.
the analysis.
Right. And look, only Trump is a guy who gets insulation from his own administration, right? Only with the Trump, would you say, like, well, it was Gabbard, it wasn't him. Trump had nothing to do with it. Every other president has to own what their administration does. So I accept that as a basis. But how do you get to treason, Mike?
That's strong words. I mean, those are strong. That's strong words.
Strong words is a
Obviously,
death sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I think the context, that's not my words. The context is that, of course, we did have a special prosecutor who investigated how did the FBI ever start this thing. It was, you kind of look at it and basically these are tactics that you've seen the intelligence community kind of use in other countries, which is basically to portray politicians not as authentic leaders of a populist movement, but really puppets of Putin. We think it starts really earlier 2016 when they basically entrap these low-level Trump aides by basically giving them information that the Russians have Hillary Clinton emails and then having them share the information with other people as a way to create a predicate for the FBI to begin its investigation. And just keep in mind, I think this is the bottom line, is that the whole point of the investigation of Russian interference was really to have a kind of an excuse for painting Trump in a particular way. The Russian interference just wasn't significant. I mean, no political scientist of any repute would suggest that had really any discernible impact whatsoever.
It's a hard thing to measure. I actually put a lot more concern on how they were manipulating dialogue on social media than the emails that they dumped from Podesta. I got caught up in that with WikiLeaks because when they dumped it, the word was, hey, this may have been classified information. And we'd never had a case where people just dumped classified information onto the internet and then other people cached it, C-A-C-H-E-D, put it onto their own servers. And the Espionage Act is not really clear about where legal responsibility begins and ends. And I had said to people, be careful. You're going to be learning about most of this stuff through us because the media usually gets a little bit more of a shield than private individuals and citizens do. And I got taken down as some deep state instrument. So I remember the situation very well. I just, I put more of a premium on the social media aspect of it. What I don't get about this is unless she's got something that says, yeah, they totally knew it wasn't this and they did it anyway to hurt him, it does seem like a distraction. And it certainly doesn't seem like it gets us to a better place.
Well, I don't. I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, the timing is after the Epstein thing, and we've called for transparency, like everybody else in the country that wants to see transparency. So there's no disagreement there. I mean, we want to see more transparency on everything, including Russiagate. These are new documents. They do show the meeting that occurred. That we know that there was this meeting where Obama tasks his IC to investigate Russian interference. And that night, so it was a meeting to begin the research. That night, somebody from his administration, almost certainly somebody that was in that meeting, leaks to the Washington Post what their findings already were. So it wasn't a good faith investigation when your people in the IC are already telling the Washington Post what the results will be, supposedly not to come out for another month. And again, I think that, remember, even this issue of the idea that everyone accepts the Russians. I mean, the conventional wisdom is that we know the Russians hacked the DNC. Again, in these documents, you see the NSA and the FBI in this earlier document say that they did not know. They did not have proof that it was the Russians. Really, what they said is this is the kind of thing Russians would do, but that's not the same thing as saying that they knew they did it. So you would see them misrepresent something where they really didn't have much certainty as something where they did have a high level of certainty.
Look, that's what I want to see the proof of. Hopefully they put it out. Because remember, even Trump was saying, thank you, Russia, for hacking the DNC. Please put out more stuff. So, it was a fairly general notion, and we should know what the basis of it was. I'm with you on it, as always. Michael Shellenberger, thank you for being here. Whatever you learn, you've got a platform at NewsNation to put it out to people.
It was great to be with you. Good to see you again, Chris.
All right, be well, my friend. And again, I may not always share the assessments, the conclusions, the rationales. I will always have them on. If they are respected sources, like Michael Shellenberger, I don't have the same understanding he does at this point, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be availed of it and make your own critical process and critical conclusion. Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.